I'd like to introduce our guest for this afternoon, Mr. Vikas Singh, former Solicitor General of India. Welcome to the retreat and to the studio, Mr. Vikas Singh, sir. What are the 3 or 4 key aspects in the Act, sir, which make it consumer friendly, which make it power market reform friendly?
Firstly, completely freeing generation from any licensing requirement. So the whole idea was to bring in private sector into generation of electricity without having the obligation of taking a license. So generation of electricity is completely freed. And the second most innovative feature is open access. Open access means that if you are a consumer, a large consumer of electricity, and there is a particular distribution company which is supplying electricity to you, and if for any reason, whether it be tariff or any other reason, you are not happy with your own distribution company, you can buy power from anybody and use the assets of the distribution company to bring power to your unit.
What would be your 2 or 3 wish list suggestions for amendments in the Electricity Act to make it more relevant and pertinent to today's scenario?
Well, if you ask me, this act, according to me, is not very well drafted. It's actually a gold mine for lawyers like us, because there is so much of interpretation that you can bring in to suit your client's perspective. So according to me, this act needs to be again looked into more closely. And one of the features which I feel definitely needs to be brought in is that the Act should provide some guidelines even for the competitive bidding process. It's been left to the central government to decide the guidelines, but the guidelines that the central government has framed so far completely lacks vision. So if the Act were to give some vision by providing what kind of guidelines the central government were to provide, I think that will go a very long way in addressing the problems of the generators, of the consumers, of the overall electricity shortage in this country. So it will be a very big thing which is the need of the hour. The reason why they go to the High Court is because the Supreme Court in the Constitution Bench judgment of Power Trading Corporation, in which I had the occasion to also argue, has taken a view that if there is a regulation by a regulator, that can't be challenged in the appellate tribunal, that has to be challenged in the High Court, which according to me, if you ask my view, is definitely not correct. If a regulation, this is not a legislative regulation in that sense, this is more of an administrative regulation. And if the regulation is made by a regulator, the appellate tribunal, which has also people expert in the field, should definitely have a relook at the regulation. But because of this judgment of the Supreme Court, which bars the appellate tribunal from looking into a regulation, now people are forced to go to the High Court. So probably at some stage, when judicial thinking gets a little more evolved, probably at some stage this PTC judgment will have to be overruled.
Looking at recent cases in the power sector, sir, where they had bid for a certain tariff, and because their coal prices went up, they had to come back to the regulator or to the government and say that our coal prices have gone up, so please give us a tariff revision. The tariff revision has in fact in a way come through. But what implications does this have for a sanctity of contract? How sanctimonious is that particular act now?
Well, as far as the Adani judgment is concerned, I look at it not merely as an adjudication of a dispute between a prospective generator or a generator and a distribution company, but more as a problem which the nation is facing as far as having some kind of certainty to a generator is concerned. What we have to appreciate is that these are very, very large investments. And if these investments, and about 2/3 price is the fuel price in the generation of electricity. Here is a case where if the business model doesn't remain viable, the industry has to shut down or it becomes sick. Now, if it becomes sick, then who ultimately accounts for the problem? Ultimately, the taxpayers' money only goes into concessions, interest rate reductions, and all kinds of reliefs that the Sick Industrial Companies Act provides, that SICA Act provides.
What would be your suggestion, sir, to ensure that we have a well-drafted piece of legislation and a well-drafted set of laws and competitive bidding guidelines?
Well, firstly, I would say that there are 2 ways of dealing with it. One is that the guideline itself should be such that it provides for a model PPA, which ultimately will ensure that all these or most of these factors are taken into account. The second stage would be that every regulator should have regulations in place which will have the authority to look into these PPAs in cases of certain unforeseen circumstances. Now, what is happening today, when the CRC judgment came, they didn't have any regulation. They have decided without any regulation. They have interfered in a concluded contract without there being any regulation in place. Whereas Supreme Court in the PTC judgment says that you can make inroads into a concluded contract only if you have regulations. So the second stage should be that every regulator should have regulations, and those regulations should empower the regulator in extreme circumstances to look into certain aspects of the PPA. Now, that's why I say in a lot of industries there is a concept of having a bid which will be workable, and below a particular rate they say it will not be workable.
Right.
So if you have a system like that in place, probably Adani and Tata may have been rejected because that bid would have been held to be unworkable.
Right. A ceiling and floor mechanism. Like
A ceiling floor mechanism, both up and low ceiling.
Right.
Now you take the case of Noida Power. Noida Power, through the bidding process, brought in SR at 4 rupees some paisa.
Right.
6 bidders were there. Noida Power was the lowest at 4 rupees something. While the matter is with the commission to approve that bid, somebody comes in with 3 rupees 60 paisa, Athena Power, and the distribution company is willing to negotiate. Now, if there is somebody willing to provide electricity at 3 rupees 60 paisa as against 4 rupees something which SR has bid, then definitely there is something wrong in the bidding process, because somebody has definitely tried to make a fast buck in the bidding process. Now, because of the lack of guidelines, because of the lack of cap upper and lower, this bid goes goes straight away as a pass through to the regulator to approve.
Can we look at cross-sectoral issues and learn from that, sir?
Actually, I am very critical of even the gas allocation policies. I don't know whether you are aware, even in the gas allocation, I had the privilege of arguing on behalf of the power producers, gas-based power producers, in the High Court of Andhra Pradesh. Gas is not being supplied to the power plants. I don't know whether you are aware. Power plants, gas-based power plants are getting hardly 20% of their PLF supply of gas. And West Coast has a terminal to import LNG, and these power plants are all situated in the East Coast where there is no terminal today.
Right.
So if you were to import in the West Coast and transport it to the East Coast, the cost at which gas would land at the East Coast would be completely prohibitive.
Right.
Whereas what is happening, that the Reliance gas, which is that Godavari basin, is being all transported to the West Coast and to North India to supply to these fertilizer plants, and the power plants which are there right there at the site are being neglected. I mean, it's a very, very faulty policy where they are looking at fertilizer generation without realizing that a fertilizer production of fertilizer is meaningless if the agriculturist doesn't have power.
What can we do to ensure that foreign investors can get a reasonable rate of return on capital, something that their stakeholders will be happy with, and Indian stakeholders will also be happy with the prices that we receive?
No, firstly, for that, the government will have to have the policy of permitting foreign companies to mine coal in India, which I don't think is there at the moment. It's more of a monopolistic kind of a business which Coal India is having. And ultimately, if you ask me, in the long run, this will have to be by privatizing Coal India itself.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Vikas Singh, sir. It's wonderful having you at the retreat, and I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you. Thank you.